you can have people training partners, you can have item training partners, okay? And you can also have obviously animal training partners. Everything's a potential training partner. And so, yeah, I just wanted to just talk about this for a bit because, I was exposed to this idea through a few other teachers, and it was really highlighted to me on a video by Mark Erasmus talking about tree Qigong, which is you essentially connect with the tree through mental transference. And, there's a very tangible felt sensation of interaction with the other living being. And if you're, out in the forest and you've got or you've just got a big tree there, the tree is emanating a life force. And this life force is going to be different to yours. It's going to offer a contrast. Whereas another person, they're also going to have a different life force. But in the early stages especially, it's going to be not as different, perhaps, perhaps. And one way that you can create difference so that, there's something that stands out, it's very apparent, is go work with a thing that puts a heck load more of it out, like a big old elder tree, like just a ancient big, wow, that's a big tree. Okay, that thing's going to be putting out a torus field and an energy stream that will be quite perceivable. You're still going to have to tweak your to connect in some cases to pick it up. But because there's, you're dealing with a much bigger thing as opposed to a human that's around the same, roughly the same kind of height, proportionally a giant tree, it's going to be like, going to be putting out a larger volume, a larger quantity. And that will be the immediate, noticeable, tangible connectivity point, if you will be that the amount of life force will be greater, and which will allow you to pick it up easier. Even if you're a bit of a sensitivity brick, you struggle to pick up on energy. And I was like this for a very long time. It's one of the reasons why I got into Qigong, was because this is literally like, thousands-year old sort of energy working systems, in their various forms, because I didn't find it in the system of Reiki. Although, if you read the right books on Reiki, you will find that there is a great emphasis on developing, they have their own form of Qigong, which is called Qi-Ko, or energy work, if you will. So, but this tree Qigong, I tell you, this is something to get straight into. You've probably got one out in the backyard, okay? And all you really need to do is sort of put your mind inside the tree. And one way you can do this is to essentially put your hands out. I'll come over here so you can see it a bit easier. And stretch out. You're stretching out, you're not just physically stretching, but you're almost like grabbing the sort of the outer peripherals of your energy field and your mental body, and you're pushing it out, and it's being led and sort of encouraged to move in that direction, and just, you're pointing in that direction, okay? And you're sending your mind into the tree. Okay, now this is one way of doing it. Another way is to, put your hand on the tree, get into a nice kind of, I guess you might call it like a relaxed, buoyant posture. So, unlock the knees so that you're like all kind of springy, right? And then put your hand on the tree. Now, if you've done the building the ball exercise, this is going to help greatly because you've already become accustomed to the feeling of energy, right? So once you learn to put your mind on the energy and less on the any kind of physical tension or contraction or muscle stress or any of these types of things. If you stand there for a long time, you're going to be feeling all my legs, or whatever. You'll get better at this. But, you could probably do it in a chair fine too. I haven't done it in a chair personally, but you probably could. You could sit with your back to the tree. But yeah, these I really love standing practices because there's just more quantity, and I want to be able to stand for long periods of time. But you're essentially, putting your hand on the tree, and you build the ball first. Get your mind or your awareness on the sensation of the vital energy, and then, when you put your hand on the tree, you feel the tree. You go, okay, I can feel the physical element of the tree. I can feel the tension, the pushback, the mass, if you will. I can feel this thing, this very physical object. And then what you do is that you put your mind on the feeling of the life force around the outside of the peripheral, okay? The energy, your own energy, right? And what you'll find is that, okay, all right, now I've got my mind on the energy. Then what you can do is that you can put your mind on the inside of the tube of your arm, if you will. And you need to move around because you're looking for some kind of tangible back and forth or energetic exchange here. Connecting with a large living being and then just hanging out there and just paying attention to it and getting to know what's going on. And this will, the more you pay attention to it, the more you'll become familiar with it, the more you'll notice how there is a two-way connection going on, and this is something to explore for no other reason than to, go and play or connect with a greater energy, life force, emanating being. And this could be one of the greatest discoveries that you come upon in weeks, months, and years of practice, because in Hermetics, we are training energy, we are training personal relationship to frequency, we are learning to understand the quality aspect of an energy, the type of flavor, and then the quantity or the volume or the amount, and how that can affect the quality as well. Because as we have more, there's a thing there. Oh, wow, I'm playing with this thing. The more time you spend paying attention to it and you're building volume, then it's like, oh, there's not just one thing, there's a bunch of things in here. And you're able to go, wow, I've got so much of this thing to play with now. I'm noticing new explorable aspects of it. And this is a key takeaway here, because, if you're working through this process, you are going to be encouraged as you move through to put your mind inside objects and to develop a new relationship with things that are outside of your physical shell. And, what are you going to pick up? You may be like, yeah, I can actually feel my mind inside this thing forming to this shape, developing mental flexibility. You may find that, it's like, I'm getting an impression of a thing. You don't know what it is, but it's like, this is quite different. And there's something very, very obvious here. How curious. And you get your journal out and you note it down. You go, this is, and you use your best descriptor. You don't necessarily have to write a story about it. All right. But what you can do is just write down, I put my hand on a thing, I did a couple of things, and now this is what I'm noticing. So you write down a bit of the process and then the experience that you are having. And, then you go back and read it the next day and you try it again and you develop this methodology, And so when we're dealing with, energy at the different levels, we're essentially forming a type of a taxonomy or an understanding of the strata, the various strata or the layers of reality. And we're getting to know them. We're getting to know the vital, physical, the astral, emotional, and the mental, spiritual, and then eventually further up. But, even within these things, there's layers, right? So, we start off with the gross material. If I had a rock just out of the garden here, I'd bring it out and go, okay, this is what we're starting with, the raw material. But you start off with this thing, and then you explore this thing, and then suddenly there's a revelation, there's an unfolding of perception that occurs, and things will become, there'll be, aspects and elements that become apparent to you. And then, as you start to record these things, your unconscious, your subconscious, or this part of you that sort of is the big storehouse of ideas, and information that helps to organize. And, this is why, it's pretty early on in the process that Bardon gives us some methods for bringing this kind of background computer of the unconscious, in alignment with our goals, because we want it to serve us. And finding out how it can serve us starts with just getting to know it and getting it on the page. But when it becomes this kind of this helper, if you will, in support of our efforts, there's new value. Any initial kind of wow, this is really great, this is working, that will become normalized over time as you develop, as you step up another level, if you will, just using that sort of visual kind of idea. You step up, you go wow, and then you normalize with it, you take ownership of it, and you're like, okay, right, I'm ready to keep moving forward, and and there's, like I said, there's an unfolding or a flowering or a revealing of new things to take notice of. And this is using the trees, big trees, can give you a very satisfying and also immediate interaction that can greatly accelerate your, if we call it clairsentient, or, the subtle sense of touch and feeling, relationship to, energy, if you will. And so before we can start, talking about the different slices of energy and the various levels, we've just got to first get kind of cool with what's immediately available to us. This is generally a very ground up approach. We're working with what we got. We're developing sense perception. We're stretching those muscles so they can, pick up, and they can discern more, and they can identify more. And big old trees are a really great way of doing that.